Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast. For the next couple of episodes, we're going to address a challenge I come across quite regularly in my line of work as a retirement planner. That is the transition from work to either full or partial retirement. I see what a massive shift it can be for people, and I think this is especially the case for those who have worked full-time for decades, possibly in the same line of work or even with the same company or in the same role, and then abruptly stop working altogether. This can cause people to question what exactly they will do with themselves and all this newfound time. Now, for some people, this isn't an issue at all. They have stacks of plans and people to spend their time with. But for others, there follows a period of questioning their purpose. So, first up, I would like to share with you a conversation I have had with Victoria Tomlinson, the founder of Next Up. This is an episode for you if you know a life of pure pleasure isn't for you. Victoria enjoyed a successful career working in digital and social media marketing, starting her own marketing company, Northern Lights, in 1990. A few years ago, she spotted a gap in the market to help people over 50 plan for what she calls a successful unretirement. Whether that be a new career or non-executive director position, starting a business or creating a fulfilling life without work, playing a part. In our conversation, Victoria shares the story behind Next Up, some of the success stories of how Next Up has helped, and her vision for the future of her company and her generation. Here's my conversation with Victoria. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, Victoria Tomlinson.
Hello, Justin. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm really looking forward to our conversation, Victoria. Now, Victoria, you're you're the Chief Executive Officer of Next Up. Tell me about Next Up.
Okay. Well, I've had a very varied career to get to this point. We launched Next Up 2 years ago. And before that, my career was sort of, back in my 20s, I used to work for what's now Delarue, traveling the world, selling banknotes and passports to foreign governments. I was then a director at EY, and then I started up, True Love came along. So I moved north to be with him. And I started up a PR, comms, digital leadership business. It sort of changed over, can you believe it, 30 years. And in the last 5-6 years or so, we started seeing a lot of very senior people being sent to us. And they were trying to forge things after they'd left full-time corporate life. I'm going to avoid that word retirement because everybody, you've touched on it quite a few times as well. People didn't see themselves as retired, but they didn't want a 24/7 stressful life anymore. And I've been on boards over the years and I've chaired a board, and I was seen as something rather odd, if I'm honest, that I was sort of quite senior in that market, but I understood LinkedIn and used it. And people came to us and asking for help to get roles, for introductions. Somebody this morning called me a collector of people, which I think I like actually. But and I was sort of seen as being a hub of something that you could try and help them sort out the next stage. And gradually we began to realize there's a need here. And out of that, we started shaping Next Up. And the issues really are, they're quite interesting actually, because again, you know, people touching on, we've got the 100-year life is no longer a big deal anymore. And I mean, you know, if you say to people, you could be retired for longer than you worked, that's quite a wake-up call. There's a lot of time to fill. And in the olden days, if you like, if you wanted to do something after retirement, it sort of was, just to simplify, it was sort of golf or non-executive director portfolio. And people are sort of thinking, the non-exec roles are becoming much harder to get. And people are also saying, do I really want that? You know, is that really very interesting? And for some people it will be, but actually, what else could I do? And they were completely lost. Let me tell you a story, because she was one of the people who, there were lots of stories of people that led us to Next Up. So there's Jules Gray, I've interviewed her, so she won't mind me sharing her story. And as I say, this was about 5 years ago. So she was introduced to me because I know people. I live in Harrogate, so she'd moved to Harrogate to be near her parents. And she'd been head of executive education at Ashridge Business School. So a pretty successful, feisty sort of woman. And she was introduced to me because she wanted to meet people to use her skills, but she didn't know how. Could I introduce her? And we had a coffee. And in the coffee, she sort of mentioned, I always had this idea for a business. And I said, well, what's stopping you? And she said, well, I'm 60, so everybody retires at my age. I said, why? I said, at the time I was 60 also. And I said, well, I'm 60 and I'm going to work for another 25 years. And she says now, she said, oh, well, I looked at you and thought, well, if you can work for another 25 years, so can I? And what I did was to switch back on her competitive spirit. And I just thought about this and thought, why did she need permission? So the rest of the story is she started up the business Corporate Faculty, which is a sort of virtual exec ed business, hugely successful. And that was sort of 4 or 5 years ago. She's having a ball. She doesn't work full time. She's loving what she does. And she keeps saying to me, I can't believe I might have just retired. And you said, well, gosh, there's a whole generation of people with amazing skills and talent who are a bit lost. So that's how Next Up came about. That was a very long introduction, Justin. So that's where we got to with Next Up.
No, that's fantastic. So tell me, how does it work in a kind of practical sense?
Yeah. Well, when we launched, we're on about our 4th and 5th business model, as people do. So we've been going now 2.5 years. So when we launched, we were going to help individuals in the way that we had been doing. And what we realized, we were going to be a membership platform. I can't remember, all sorts of different ideas and things. And we tried various ones out. And you quickly realize these weren't working. And what we're doing now is we're going to corporates. So we're helping senior people, particularly at the moment, professional firms, helping people. We're saying age 50 plus, so that you don't have that sensitive issue of saying I'm about to retire, because no one likes to declare their hand too soon on this. And we're working with partners in particular, and we're running 2-day workshops. Well, pre-COVID, they've gone online now, and we are getting the most amazing results. So before the workshop, we give everybody a questionnaire, and often I've heard you talking about this. Often it's the first time they've started articulating. So how many days do you want to work being inverted commas? And do you need to earn money? Do you want to earn money? And what thoughts have you got? And I get people to think about their dreams and their ambitions, which a lot of people struggle around because they haven't had time to think about them. But beforehand, I asked them, how are you feeling about the future? And typically around 70% are saying, I feel apprehensive and uncertain about the future. Yeah. At the end of the 2-day workshop, we have 70% around saying, I'm excited about opportunities ahead. And that's a massive transformation over 2 days. And we're particularly about ideas and inspiration. We bring in masses of stories of what people are doing. The stories like Jules Gray, loads of other stories about what people are doing. And I interviewed on Friday, I interviewed David Morley, who was the senior partner at Allen & Overy, one of the Magic Circle law firms. And he was talking about, it's all about people. I get them to share their insights and their tips and what they're doing. And he said, it's all about people and networks. Whereas a lot of people think it's all going to be headhunters, and it's not actually. But he also mentioned he's about to launch a podcast. We're getting competition here, Justin, because we're thinking of launching a podcast too. And he's doing it around leadership in professional firms, and doing it with Professor Laura Empson, who's at Cass Business School. So, and he said, we're going to try it. It's a bit of fun, and it's showing people to give it a go, let go of the past, and you've still got bags to offer. And one of the other things that we're doing, this came out of, I mentioned I've sat on boards and chaired them. And my generation has been really bad at owning technology as it's developed over the years. And what started as a bit of a devious idea to get people to own a bit more tech was I got them mentoring tech entrepreneurs. And initially everyone went, oh my God, I don't know anything about tech and how can I do that? And then what came out was, of course, the tech entrepreneurs know everything about tech, but what they bring is things like how do you articulate your business and people skills, the questions about, cash flow, how are you going to grow and all the rest. And that's been a huge success. And we launched a free mentoring site as a result of COVID to get more people mentoring. Huge success. And that was Leeds City Council helping us to do that. And we're kind of wondering, where did that go, and how do we, a lot of the challenge here is there's a real need, but how do we monetize it for the long term? But there's a huge amount of opportunity to use the skills of this generation. And I'm really excited about it.
So tell me about some of maybe the more interesting things that you hear discussed. You know, some of these ideas and new missions for people, for people kind of exiting their current workplaces and thinking about the future.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this is about working out what you enjoy doing, and that can take a couple of years for people to do. But I'm thinking about there's a fireman, Turan, and he was a senior fire officer, and he has started a cold smoking cookery school. And there's a bit of an irony here about the cold smoking and all the rest of it. But he had a passion for curing meats and fish and things. And he was going running, and he saw a sort of cookery, a kind of a unit, if you like. And he started the cookery school. And he also brings in artisan, I think, cheesemakers and chocolatiers and people. And he's absolutely loving it. And these things are not massive businesses. And I'm thinking about Elizabeth Jackson. So she was chief executive of Director Bank, which was recruitment for private equity of directors. And she's now growing 4 acres of flowers for the wholesale market. There's a big move at the moment to move to British flowers, particularly for weddings, rather than having air miles of flowers, if you like. And she's loving that. And she does that with her husband. He does a lot of the digging with her. And she also brings in, there's a scheme called, I think it's called Workway. I hope I've got that name right. But it's a scheme where you can bring in people to help you with the gardens and the growing from all around the world. So she's had people from Japan, Peru. They stay with them for a couple of weeks, help them with free labor. They give them free board, and they have dinner with them and chat and learn about new cultures. So there are so many different things to think about here in terms of what could we do next. And then I've got a wonderful guy, Don Ezra. So he's a Canadian, and he was an actuary. An actuary, as you will know, Justin, are normally seen as quite steady, you know what I mean, kind of whatever. When I chatted to him, I said to him, look, I'd love to record what you're doing because I keep attacking people. And I said, would you do a podcast with me, an interview with me now? And he said, no, I don't do anything spontaneously. And he was so lovely, but he said, I will do one, give me time to think about it. But he started blogging around really the actuarial side. Actually, you would love him, around the whole actuarial side. And he's written a couple of books about thinking about the money side of things for the long-term future. So we have just got stacks and stacks of ideas and meeting people. And if anybody listening to this has got good stories of what you've done in retirement, we are always up for hearing that. And we'd love just to share them with wider audiences.
Now, you've got a thing called the 500 Mentors for 500 Entrepreneurs and Leaders program. So tell me about that.
So that's the program that I was just mentioning, the site that I was mentioning about mentoring, getting experienced generation mentoring, particularly tech entrepreneurs, but we've expanded it now. So we've got Edinburgh Business School. We've got people mentoring Edinburgh MBA. So there were 3 or 4 in the summer who were ready with businesses. So we got mentors on to help them. We're now seen as part of the Leeds infrastructure in terms of helping entrepreneurs. Leeds has got an amazing entrepreneurial scene and support to get people going. And they're absolutely loving this intergenerational thing here. And everybody gets something out of it. And we've got so many youngsters. We've got Omar, who's just launched Faraday Drinks. And he admits, I think this was his phrase, I rinsed the site. So he went out to 20 mentors and he said, would you help me? And they've done everything from somebody introduced him to James Kane, who's just sold Harrogate Water. So what an introduction that was. So he's steeped in the drinks market. Someone else has introduced him to a private equity firm to start talking about raising finance. Others helped him with his business plan, challenging him. That's one of the things this generation does. Introductions like nobody can imagine, that we have all got. You don't even realize who you've got until you hear the issues and think, actually, I could introduce you to. And so there's a massive asset there in terms of helping the younger generation, students, entrepreneurs, all sorts. I mean, I have a huge vision for where we go. As I say, it's just how do we monetize all of this for the long term? But there's a real need here, and there's such an opportunity with this generation. I just think it's very exciting, really.
Yeah. So tell me what is the vision for Next Up? What would be a fantastic outcome for 3 years time?
Okay, so to scale this massively, I've got a whole pool of people I want to bring in and get them involved. So they've retired and they're our associates, and we've got a whole pool behind them. And what I want to do, the vision is that we create an army of people using their skills in new ways. In some ways, I'm teaching people to be a bit entrepreneurial once they've left, to find the opportunities themselves and show them how to go and start offering their skills. Typically, it's often for free. But actually, one of the things that you see time and again is if you offer your skills for free, very often it turns into something paid. It may not be your old sort of pay levels and rates and things. So that's the vision. And my vision is to change the way we look at this generation and stop aging being seen as a liability to society, instead of which turn it around that this is an opportunity. And, one of the things, I was quite interested just recently that somebody said to me, "You've become really techie, haven't you?" And I thought, well, not exactly, but I'm now in with the techie market, and I'm working with all these, I'm calling them youngsters. They are so inspiring. And I've loved networking with them. They are the future. And earlier this year, Women in Leeds Digital said to me, "Would you be our chair?" And I was bowled over and tickled pink. And we're trying to increase the diversity of people in the digital space, if you like, encouraging more women, but kind of diversity in all senses there. And these sorts of things, it feels really worthwhile to be doing. And I think we're making a real difference. And I want that sort of opportunity for a much wider market. And it doesn't matter who you are. Okay, I'm talking about senior people, but we're also talking to councils and others. And what they're saying is they're loving this. And they're saying, if people are more active in retirement, I can hardly say that word, but actually you're less likely to be physically or mentally ill. So there's a whole government, public sector reason for doing this as well, because you keep everybody more active, they contribute to society, and they're less likely to be a drain on society as we get older. I can't say that wording there. So I just think it's a real opportunity now to transform. Lots of people are talking about things. I'd like us all to join up a bit more. The government's got enough on its plate really at the moment, but I do think there's something that we probably ought to be trying to do more cohesively nationally. And I want to find a large corporate who's going to own this space and work with us. So that's my kind of vision for this. And I definitely want to build Next Up for the future. And I want to be helping more individuals. So we help individuals and corporates, and anybody who wants help, we can do so much to get them on the tracks and get going and have fun at this stage.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I mean, it absolutely sounds really admirable what you're trying to achieve. Where can our listeners find out more about the great work that you're doing?
Okay, well, you go to next-up.com. That hyphen is really important, not to forget that. So next-up.com, and you can see all sorts. You can see what we offer for individuals and for businesses. We've got stacks of stories. So if you go to our peer stories, there are lots and lots of videos there, people sharing their insights, their stories, and all the rest of it. Lots of blogs with tips and lots of resources on the site. I'm not even sure what we've got ourselves because we've put so much up there. But please go, all of that material is free to access. So please go and use it and share it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Victoria. I really enjoyed chatting to you and the great work that you're doing. And I'll put all those links in the show notes so people can find out more about you. Thanks you,
Justin. And I love your podcast too. Good luck to you too with yours. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks once again to Victoria for sharing her story with us. To find out more about the work that Next Up do, check out the show notes on our website at theretirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll also find some useful links. You won't need to wait 2 weeks for the next episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast, as we are releasing a bonus episode next week. I'll be welcoming Susan Noble back to the podcast This time she's talking about her new venture, Startup School for Seniors. As ever, if you would like to get in touch, you can email me at hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk, or you can tweet me at Justin King CFP. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.